Welcome, everyone, to the Pick Six podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL podcast. I'm Katie Mox here with Will Brinson, Brady Quinn, and John Breech. Brinson gave me the keys to the Ferrari. Little does he know that I'm basically the valet guy in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and we're about to go on an absolute joyride. Fellas, how's it going?
I wish this thing was a Ferrari. It's a beat up Ferrari if it is, but I appreciate it. And I should know that when Brady Quinn is on, you are free to say it's a Brady Quinn football show. I told you to be air.
All right, good to know.
There's a backstory there, Katie. We'll try to get you more involved in that, but essentially the origin comes from me visiting the University of Miami back during the Manny Diaz era, and they were all about speed, so much so that in one particular play, they had a DJ out there, everything else, a lot of bumps, a lot of vibes going on. And there was a deep ball thrown to, I think it was like Mark Pope, and he didn't catch it. He actually was overthrown as an incomplete pass, but he ran really fast, right? Everyone's wearing these GPS systems, and they literally stopped practice, and they played air horns. It was like, Mark Pope, 22 miles per hour. I was like, what is happening? And they're like, they're all about trying to like make sure guys are running fast and hitting top numbers, and they're really excited about him running fast right there. I was like, okay, this is probably not a good sign for your football team. So that was the origin of the air horns, and now they've been put to rest by Mark Cristobal.
And also, speaking of Miami, John Breech was a DJ at Miami in a club, and he frequently used air horns.
Is this true?
Wow.
It's believable. Okay, that's the funny part. That is the funny part. Also, I think this is the first time me and Brady Quinn have ever been on a podcast together, even though we've hung out so many times. But apparently CBS has been keeping us separated because we're kind of bitter rivals ever since I upset him in the Handsomest Man in Ohio contest back in 2006.
Wow.
Brady's still a little upset. Sorry, Brady. You can have the trophy if you really want it.
I wasn't living in Ohio then, but it's kind of odd you bring that up because I was still a senior at Notre Dame. So I guess I mean, it was a different Brady Quinn that had entered into that contest. Did you get your years a little wrong there, Breech? What happened?
Let him have it.
There was a height limit in the contest, so maybe you were in this one.
Have you ever met another Brady Quinn? Is there like another? Because like there's another Will Brinson out there who like lives in North Carolina. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I made it my life's mission to snuff him off of the internet. Like you can't find anything about him.
No chance he has as good a facial hair or as much body hair as you do. There's no chance.
Highly unlikely.
No
it's highly
chance.
unlikely.
There's another Katie Mox as well that lived in Los Angeles back when I was someone who used to frequent tanning salons. I went there once, and there was another Katie Mox where I was like, get this lady out of here. But
yeah. It was like Mox, Katie, next up. Like I don't know how a tanning salon works.
Obviously. You live in LA. Why a tanning salon? I don't get that.
So this was the early 2000s, Brady. And so tans were really in. And even in Southern California in the winter, it does get a little bit cold, not quite as sunny. And so
with a marine layer, is that what we're talking about here?
This was during like the gym tan laundry days, and so had to keep up the tan. I was very, very blonde, very tan, and very thin. So thank you for bringing up that.
Are tans? I mean, so you're not talking like, because I mean, tans are always in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, are people sending spray tans?
Yeah, but there's in and there's Jersey Shore in, like she's referring to.
Or people.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have now that we've gotten older, we've graduated to the spray tans when needed. Like before you're going on vacation, you get a spray tan just as like your base tan, so you're not out there looking pasty. And then as you are, in Hawaii or Cabo or wherever, then your natural tan shows through. So by the time you get home, nobody knows that you got a spray tan. But you got to start with a little base.
I kid you not. I saw this group that was painting this house, and then out by the truck where all the stuff was, they're like spraying down this women that would come by too. It was like a 2-for-1 special. It was amazing. I'm like, what is this, a swap shop? Like, how does this work here? Like, your house painted and you get everyone with the spray tan as well for a discount, huh?
Wow. Hey, I would move there. All right, guys. Enough with the.
See, that's you had designs of getting into the content early, and then it's not.
Yeah, we've gone awry here, but all right, guys, it's a free agency right now, so there's a lot to discuss. We thought we'd play a fun little game of Deal or No Deal. We've taken an intriguing group of potential free agents and paired them with random NFL teams. Each of you will decide if the team should give them a deal or not. So let's start at the top. Lamar Jackson, arguably the hottest topic in these free agency streets right now. According to Twitter sleuths, Jackson recently liked and then unliked a tweet suggesting that he should join the NFC South. Brinson, Lamar Jackson to the Saints, deal or no deal?
I mean, I think every team in the NFL, well, I mean, not every team in the NFL, with a few exceptions, obviously, most teams in the NFL should be interested in Lamar Jackson. Yeah. He's a former MVP. You know, I think that you could easily fashion a more traditional offense, like less Greg Roman involved, around him if you wanted to, and accentuate his passing skills. But I'm going to say no deal for the Saints because, one, they no longer have Sean Payton. They passed on Lamar Jackson in the draft to trade up to get Marcus Davenport after they gave up a future first-round pick. And speaking of future first-round picks, they don't have theirs because they gave it up to the Eagles. They also have negative $30 million in salary cap space, which means – and they can clear it up pretty easily with some restructures of Cameron Jordan and a few other guys. But, like, if you're going to sign Lamar Jackson to an offer sheet that he's going to accept, it's going to have to be massive guaranteed dollars, which makes it really difficult to make a play for him if you don't have, if you don't have salary cap space and you don't have the first round picks to make that swap, assuming we get a non-exclusive tag there.
Yeah, I feel like we're operating in fantasy world here because there's no way Lamar Jackson doesn't get the exclusive franchise tag slapped on him, and then we can kind of start talking from there. But in this case, it just seems like there's too many hurdles. Will laid out all the scenarios. I think in a dream, it'd be awesome to see him with the New Orleans Saints. That roster, as it's currently intact with Lamar Jackson a part of it, it'd be great. But unfortunately, because of adding Lamar Jackson and a long-term contract, which is what they'd most likely have to do in order to make this happen, you're going to talk about guys being traded back and forth or having to cut and release guys just to be able to create enough cap space to make that happen. So I would love it to be a deal. I'm not sure if it gets to the point where it's a deal or no deal. I think it's living in La La Land, but in this case, La La for Louisiana, not necessarily LA.
I'm going to have to agree with Brinson, Brady, and now Breech. What a killer bees. That's awesome. Anyway, that is the point. Look, if the Saints were even to try to sign Lamar Jackson, let's just say he gets the non-exclusive franchise tag so that he's out there and you can make a contract. He would literally be on the field by himself because they couldn't afford any other players. As Brinson know that they're $30 million over the salary cap now, plus another $50 million that you're giving to Lamar. So now you're $80 million over the salary cap, and now you got to work your way back from there. And as magical as the Saints have been with their salary cap exercises over the past few years, that seems a bit too much to figure out. So I would also go no deal.
And I would even throw out too, and I don't know if this is where you're going to go, Katie, but as someone who grew up as a Panthers fan, watching them play the Falcons constantly, and in and around the South with Michael Vick, the idea of Lamar Jackson going Mike Vick 2.0. Do you remember that Monday night game where Mike Vick floated 7 yards across the field for a touchdown? He floated. I'm not even kidding. He jumped and was just gliding across the ground. I want Lamar Jackson in those Falcons uniforms because I think that'd be kind of hot.
Is that like the Wayne's World floating? When he's floating through the crowd to go see Cassandra? Is that that sort of floating?
No, he was more horizontal. I swear. I remember where I was. I was we were up at Crowley's it was 25
Weaver.
25. It was 25-cent wing night at Crowley's. It's $1.50 Bud Light.
What year was this, Brinson? Can you help us with a time frame?
It was Michael Vick before he got arrested for dogfighting. So it was a long
2001 to 2008. There's still a huge gap here.
He was with the. I'll look up the date. I'll find it out.
Let's just all take a guess right now. Yeah. I'm going to say.
Shout out Crowley's, by the way.
Yeah, shout out Crowley's. We don't know who you are, but shout out Crowley's. I'll just say 2003 is when this took place.
That sounds about right. I think I was in college in 2000.
I'll say 2004.
I was gonna say 2004 too.
Were you making the comment, Breech, about Mike Vick's time with the Falcons, or are you making the comment about my time in college?
Both.
It's fair.
Well, we know how long you were in college.
You took a victory lap in there, didn't you, somewhere?
Yeah, a couple of spins around the old track
Victory lap, tripped and fell down.
Our next deal is who? What's that?
Boom. Roasted.
Damn it.
Oh, wow. That was fun. Yeah. All right, let's keep it with the quarterbacks. And let's talk about Geno Smith to the Panthers. He was a top 10 signal caller in 2022, had a passer grade of 99.2 on 20-plus yard throws, the best in the NFL. Brady, deal or no deal for Geno Smith to the Panthers?
Look, I love Geno. I got to spend some time with him his rookie year. He had then all the skills to be successful in the NFL. You know, I think the biggest thing that he struggled with back then was he was in the New York market, and he was a little immature at the time as far as figuring out his process, how to prepare, how to be consistent, all those things. And I think honestly, the structure of that organization probably wasn't too stable either. Given the time when I walked in, John Izek, Rex Ryan, that whole crew, and then how things transpired afterwards. But I think he's a very capable quarterback. I just don't know that it makes sense as a deal for Carolina because of their recent track record, right? They tried with Teddy Bridgewater. That didn't work. They tried with Sam Darnold. That didn't work. They tried with Baker Mayfield. That didn't work. Can you really go another veteran route where there might be some question marks about whether or not they can be the guy for the long haul? Are they truly a franchise quarterback? If you're David Tepper, you're saying, yeah, it'd be nice, and he played great last season, but even I want to see him do it again. So it probably makes more sense for Geno Smith to stay in Seattle. That's where he has the most equity built up. That's where he should want to stay and try to build on the momentum that he had last year. So I love Geno, but I think it's not a good deal necessarily, probably from the Carolina standpoint of things. They'd be better off looking into the draft and kind of going that route.
Brady. I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to say, look, I do think the best spot for Geno Smith is in Seattle, that he will probably end up re-signing there. But for the purpose of deal or no deal, I'm going to say the Panthers should look to make this deal. And that's because, look, Brady did mention all the absolute failures that the Panthers have had at quarterback over the past few years with Mayfield, Darnold, Bridgewater. But the big difference is they actually have a proven offensive coach as their head coach right now. I think Geno Smith would be an interesting fit for Frank Reich, who was probably just beside himself after, let's see, Coach Carson Wentz, Coach Matt Ryan, 2 straight years of coaching 2 total turnover machines. And now you have Geno, who does a pretty good job of protecting balls. Katie mentioned top 10 quarterback in 2022. And so I think Frank Reich, maybe they go after a veteran, but I think he would be thrilled to have someone like Geno after spending the last 2 years with Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz.
I'm going to say no deal because I'm going to give the Panthers instead a different veteran quarterback, Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, okay. All right.
Former Frank Reich quarterback.
Yeah, where plays college ball at?
Let's see. Where did he play?
Where did he play, huh? Where did he play?
Brady.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Raise the roof, Will. Get it up there for the Wolfpack.
I'm actually annoyed because I ended up with the wrong pint glass. I had an old Tuffy pint glass to bring to you. One of the bits too is that Brady thinks that I wake up in the morning and brush my teeth with Old Tuffy, which is the.
I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, I would if I actually had some Old Tuffy, but no one ever sends me any.
I got some. I'll pack it up and say just tell everybody what your address is. And
I still need a Brinson Sucks hat. I've never gotten one of those either.
I don't have one anymore.
Are there Brinson Sucks hats?
Yeah,
see, exactly.
Unbelievable.
I always keep it right on hand so I can pull it up at any point ever.
Well, so our Lewis, a podcast listener, made those and sent them to us. And I actually have one that just says "I suck," but because you don't get the joke of the Brinson Sucks hat. Brady has promised to wear his on Fox's big noon Saturday kickoff, and maybe get Urban Meyer to wear it too, if possible.
Yeah.
Go Tar Heels.
I'm giving this to Brady then. I can't wait to see him wear it on the big noon kickoff.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm going to go no deal on this one too. I'm not sure that Carolina has the financial flexibility to pull this off. As you guys know, finding a quarterback on a budget, always a challenge. That might be better off drafting a young talent. All right, Breech. The Eagles signed Bradbury to a 1-year, $7.5 million contract last spring after he was released by the Giants. He responded with an all-pro season, but he wants to get paid. Deal or no deal for the Eagles?
Yeah, I'm like deal here, but hesitantly. If he wants to break the bank and be a top 5 highest paid corner, then it's no deal. But if I can talk him into a small raise over that $7.5 million he had, then it's a deal. And I'm just going to say, look, James, you had a great year. This is me talking as the Eagles front office, but I'm not sure if you remember how the Super Bowl ended. That little holding call kind of made a big. What? I'm going to use my leverage. I have the leverage. That's what I'm doing as the front office. So yeah,
you think what is like Howie Rose are going to print out the Juju Smith-Schuster tweet and be like, look at this. You see this? This humiliated us. Like, come on, buddy.
This is become best friends. Yep.
Exactly, Will. You're on the same wavelength here. So yeah, if he's willing to, take something under maybe 13, 14 million, I probably look to sign him. But if he wants something over that, just let him walk. So deal kind of.
I think that first of all, I'm like shook by the fact that you called me Will. That's the first time in like 5 years that Breech just called me
Second
Will.
time in 2 weeks after I didn't do it.
I know, it's very bizarre. What's happening here? I think the thing for me, and I don't know if you agree or not, Brady, but like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is more important to that secondary than James Bradbury. So the problem here is probably that you got to use the tag to keep whichever one you want. I'm tagging Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and not James Bradbury. So I think deal is fine, but I think probably no deal happens.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because I feel like you're losing a lot of defensive pieces, right? Fletcher Cox is a free agent. Javon Hargrave's a free agent. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's a free agent. James Bradbury as well. TJ Edwards. I mean, you go through the line. The Eagles have a lot of decisions to make with a lot of the unrestricted free agents they've got heading into this offseason. So they got to be careful about who they select with wanting to use the tag if they decide to use it. And then, based on that for Bradbury, can you go find something that's complementary to him in the draft and get that level of play? Probably not right away, but the way Howie Roseman has constructed this team and the way he's drafted and they've developed, you'd have to think that he's going to be able to figure out a solution to this. He's done as good of a job as anyone as far as roster building. They obviously had the most Pro Bowls and Pro Bowl alternates, if that's still a thing that matters anymore. If you look at this past year's Pro Bowl, so it's a talented team. It's just a matter of, is the price going to be right? I personally would do the deal because I do think this is a team that can compete for years to come. So you got to have some continuity there. But I could see that price tag getting a little bit too high for James Bradbury and then unfortunately letting him walk.
If he does walk, where would you guys like to see him?
There's another team out there in the Bay Area that's got a lot of guys who are hitting free agency. So maybe he'd be a good fit on another really good defense that could potentially use his skill set talents. Somewhere bang.
Brady's really referencing
my
the backgrounds today. Yeah. Like you got me with the Pack, and now you got Katie with the 49ers.
I love it. Nothing would make me happier. Okay, let's talk Saquon Barkley. He absolutely torched the Vikings in the wild card round. Brinson, you're the Vikings. Deal or no deal for Saquon?
No deal. No deal. No deal. Did Dalvin Cook's contract? Did his contract run up or something? I feel like they have their guy, and they have Alexander Madison too. So it's like cheap. I'm not paying a running back in free agency. That's just me, and certainly not paying a second one. So I say no deal. Breech.
Brady.
Do we have an order for this? I thought Breech was next up. Then my bad.
I don't know.
It's reversed alphabetical by middle name.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I saw this thing and I was like, "Are we really contemplating this? Like, did I miss something here?"
I was like, did Dalvin Cook die? Like, what happened to
Well, but I also don't think that the Giants are going to.
He's got an out in his contract. They can get rid of him easy.
Yeah.
They could get rid of him, and maybe that's part of it. But are you going to get rid of one running back and then bring in one that's going to be looking for a high price tag? It doesn't make a ton of sense in my mind. I mean, look, Saquon Barkley had a phenomenal year. He's incredibly versatile with what he can do, but I think he'd be probably better off trying to maximize his dollar value on a team that needs a difference maker at that position. He's not the difference maker on the Vikings. That's going to be Justin Jefferson first, foremost, and always. And then after that, you've got some other complementary pieces, especially deciding on what they do with Hawkinson now that they got him on the roster too. So I kind of look at it and just think that's not necessarily probably what Kevin O'Connell would want to do with constructing his offense, even as tantalizing as that would be. And if Aaron Rodgers does leave the division, now you're looking at the Detroit Lions probably as your next toughest competition. I don't know that you need to necessarily spend a bunch of money on a running back. I think that money could be utilized somewhere else if you're the Vikings. So no deal.
Yeah, and the Vikings are way over the salary cap right now. And if you're taking that money you don't have and spending it on a running back, that's like taking your $2,000 rent check and buying 41 boxes of waffles instead of paying rent. You just don't do it. So I'm going to say that, who should the Vikings have a deal with? James Bradbury, because they need help in the secondary. Ooh. That's the guy I'm making a deal with, but no deal with Saquon.
It's actually a waffle shortage right now. Did you know that?
I was just going to say, actually, the price of waffles has literally gone up as you just got done saying that, Breech.
Now it's going to go up even more.
I know. I'm serious. Like, you probably should rethink that whole analogy that you just gave with the waffles and the rent.
Sell.
I'm a huge waffle guy.
You actually want to take that money and then go buy some waffles right now.
Invest in waffles
out there. Yeah.
Invest in waffles. Well, do you think but what about the Giants for Saquon? Obviously, we're going to talk about Daniel Jones coming up here in a little bit, but they've got both of them. They got to worry about, do they keep Dan Jones or Saquon?
I mean, I think if it boils down to it, you have to obviously tag Daniel Jones I was under the impression, or I guess I sort of naively thought this because I'm such a team player and a good person and not a greedy quarterback who wants all the money. And wow. I was thinking like Daniel Jones might be like, I'll take this. Yeah, well, it's always personal here. I was thinking Daniel Jones might be willing to like take less, like a little bit less money. No, I mean obviously like not. It was stupid and naive of me. I understand that now. Okay, like I get it, but I mean. I was. You could also franchise tag Daniel Jones and transition tag Saquon Barkley if you really needed to. I think. I have to look at the money on it.
Yeah. I think it all depends on what kind of tag they want to use. But in my estimate, I think you're probably going to look at the non-exclusive franchise tag on Daniel Jones. It makes more sense for where he's at, and then you can let the rest of the league do the bidding. If anyone's truly out there. And is in need or desire of a quarterback, and they think Daniel Jones is that guy, so be it. You get some 2 first-round picks back, you go rebuild with one of the quarterbacks in this year's or next year's draft. So that wouldn't be a bad strategy. I'm not sure that anyone's going to be paying the price tag for a lot of these running backs like they used to. I think McCaffrey hit the top end of the market when he signed his deal with the Carolina Panthers. Kamara was even a little bit above that too. And I just have a hard time believing as good as Barkley's looked. He's got an injury history. There are some inconsistencies there too. And even as versatile as he is as a pass catcher, I don't know that you're going to be spending top dollar at that position anymore, at least not for the foreseeable future.
Well, and especially because Barkley might not even be the best running back on the market if he's out there. I mean, Josh Jacobs could be available. We just had Jamal Williams score a bunch, lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns for the Lions, could be a free agent. So there's going to be a lot of guys out there, and Barkley might not be option 1A for a lot of these teams.
By the way, and not to mention, you have 2 running backs right now that I say are first-round top talents in Bijan Robinson out of Texas and Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama at a minimum. Both those guys are studs, and this is another class where I'd say you have your top-end guys like that who I think can come in and be difference makers right away. And then you've got your middle tier of backs who are still very much capable of making an impact too on rosters and starting and kind of being those diamonds in the rough that we talk about every single year.
Yeah. And
all right, guys.
Yeah. Well, you can go to the next one. Sorry.
Well, no, I was going to say, let's take a quick break, but if you've got more things to say, Brinson, by all means.
No. By all means, you throw us to the break. Sorry.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break. You're watching the Pick Six podcast, and we are talking free agency hypotheticals. We'll be right back.
Let's go. You can feel the madness.
All right, welcome back to the Pick Six podcast. Katie Mox, Will Brinson, Brady Quinn, and John Breech playing a little deal or no deal with NFL free agency. Brinson, did you want to say anything to start us off here? I cut you off a little early.
No. I was just going to say, actually, you know what? I saw the March Madness ad that rolled on the YouTube, and you can watch it on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6. And my brain, because the way that it operates, I think we all can agree with this. Like, there's a bunch of mothballs floating around in my head, and it's just like, sometimes I see a squirrel, and it's, it's like, pew, and so I have no idea what I was going to say before the break.
You're like a goldfish, Brinson. You just don't have very long-term memory there, huh?
Right. My attention span is like that of a very unintelligent goldfish. That's correct.
All right. Well, on that note, let's keep this train moving along. How about Juju Smith-Schuster? Obviously, a hot topic after the Super Bowl there. To the Bears, a little Claypool Juju reunion in the Windy City. He should land somewhere between 10 and 12 million for at least 4 years. The Bears can afford that. But Brady, deal or no deal?
I'm going to say deal because the roster needs an upgrade pretty much at every single position group. Juju had a solid year for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know that it's enough for anyone to consider him a true number 1 wide receiver, but I do think he could fit within that intermediate route, move the chains type player, reliable hands, especially for a quarterback who's still developing in Justin Fields. So you get Claypool in there as more of your bigger bodied, isolated wide receiver, shots downfield in the red zone. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster in there for the more intermediate. And then you just find unique ways of getting the ball in Darnell Mooney's hands, along with Cole Kmet, who are their 2 obviously holdovers who I think show the most promise. So you add that to the mix. Like, to me, that's a pretty solid group for Justin Fields, not only to evaluate him moving forward, but I think to give him a fighting chance in the NFC North. So I'm going to say deal, but again, the price has to be right in all this. It's not like we've got infinite money like the Brinson estate with what they spend on all the maintenance and landscaping and everything else going on out there.
Well, hey, look, we invested in waffles a few months ago, and it's paying.
That'll do it.
That's the investment that keeps on giving. Let me just tell you that
Waffles.
I have 3 Ferraris because of my waffle investments.
That's that's
3.
Good job. Good job by you, Breechy. I would say I think deal too. If like Brady said, if the money's right. I really just want to point out, and Breech, I'll let you apologize to me as someone who
you need him to Breech,
who mocked me. You and Wilson berated me on the trade deadline show when I said it was outrageous, egregious, even for the Bears to go up a 2nd-round pick, which I at the time even said could be number 35 overall. You guys berated me, and I want an apology, damn it, for me being correct about that trade.
There was no such beratement from me. I was indifferent. I don't think
denial.
Yeah, Wilson's in Indy. I'll throw him under the bus. He's not in a spot to respond right now. I'm going to say no deal, though, with Juju. I think, hey, look, he put up decent numbers playing in a very prolific Chiefs offense. I'm not sure that he would be very content playing in the Bears offense. I feel like you get to a situation where just maybe put some things on TikTok, complains a little bit about not getting the kind of passes, the targets that he's used to, that he got in Kansas City last year. And it does feel like the Bears might try to go to a more run-heavy offense with Justin Fields. So I'm not sure that Juju would love playing the offense. I do agree with Brady that he'd be a good fit, but I don't think that he would love it there.
I have a question too. If the Bears, to me, the other thing is like the Bears would be better off signing an offensive lineman. And I also want to know if Cocaine Bear was in the free agent.
Oh yes, that's what they need. Wow. Like, just to go on Breech's point, if you're going to run the football, you need a bunch of like Cocaine Bears. I don't know if anyone's seen that movie lately. My goodness,
I haven't seen the movie yet. Have y'all seen it?
No.
It's crazy. It is nuts.
You seen it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Is it?
I think it ventures pretty far away from the actual true story of what took place.
Yeah, in real life, the bear is all the cocaine.
Spoiler alert, Katie, my goodness.
Cocaine, but
the real bear, not Cocaine Bear.
Yeah.
The real life Cocaine Bear ate a bunch of cocaine and died, which is just what it's going to happen. But in this, because it's almost like sort of Sharknado-ish in like its willingness to extend reality. Like it's as we English, a suspension of disbelief.
I'm not going to ruin it for anyone out there. You should go see it. It's pretty entertaining. I'll leave it at that. But look, if they want to turn it into a running offense, which I don't think that's necessarily what wins anymore in the NFL, not consistently, they need to think about going back to those 85 Bears who may have also been deemed as the Cocaine Bears. But either way, I think an offensive lineman would be a better fit for this right now moving forward, because that's another group up front that they need probably more help there than to do a wide receiver or pass catcher at this point.
Same.
All right. Moving on. The Rams finished the year 5-12, and they failed to make the playoffs. The run game was practically non-existent, bottom 5 in the league. Josh Jacobs is available. Brinson, you making that deal?
I think I actually transcribed it thinking that we were signing him to the 49ers, which I was like, what do we do? What is happening here? This is
wow.
No, it wouldn't make any sense because you have McCaffrey and like you've seen in reality, the Niners have been so good at finding the later, Kyle's missed on some guys, but the later round guys have really hit for him. I would suggest that Josh Jacobs, the Rams. I love Josh Jacobs. Like he is my new favorite player because we interviewed him at the Super Bowl, and I was like, who's the worst trash talker in the NFL? And he paused, and he was like, Derek Carr. I was like, oh my God, which is savage. But he's like, DC is gonna be mad, but he was a really fun interview. I think that I don't know. I'm trying to think if I don't know. I think the fit could work, but it feels like they got something with Cam Akers late. I don't know that they need to be. I don't know. They need to put it this way. Yeah. Can
I put it this way? Like Josh Jacobs going to the Rams offense makes you feel like you're driving a Prius, right? Like you're efficient. It's good fuel economy, but that's an offense that they want to take shots. They want to get chunks. They want to be able to go when they want to. Like they need more of like a Tesla, like a faster electric car. I think Josh Jacobs is a heck of a running back. I just don't know if that fits really the scheme and what Sean McVay's looking at doing in their backfield. And Will, you touched on the last thing that I think, Breech, I'd love to hear an explanation. What the hell happened with Cam Akers last year? Like, what was that? What is going on there?
It's weird.
I mean, that's the guy who didn't want to play, refused to play the first part of the season. And then injuries happen. All of a sudden, he's the starter. He's racking up huge yards, had the huge game on Christmas Day. That was a little crazy. So if you're the Rams, you're thinking, can we take this guy seriously? Is he our number one back going into 2023? But I think we talked about this a little bit with the Vikings, where you're going to free agency. You have a ton of needs. You cannot spend a lot of money on a running back. That is a one position. You're not going to give a guy 10, 11, $12 million per year. So I am definitely a no deal unless the Rams are willing to sell the waffles to pay Josh Jacobs. But I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either. I think QB depth is a real problem for them. Do you guys think that they're going to re-sign Baker?
If I'm Baker, I'd want to re-sign there, and in part because I don't know how much longer Matt Stafford wants to do it, but if McVay keeps coming back, he's one of the best offensive minds. And so if you're going to resurrect your career under an offensive mind like that, that would be a place I'd look at. I'd look at San Francisco too. If I could get with Kyle Shanahan, I mean, every quarterback balls out in that system. So look, there's no telling signs that, yes, they invested a lot in Trey Lance. What if that doesn't pan out? You know, maybe you're sitting there waiting in the wings, and with Brock Purdy's injury, there's a window open there, and you know Jimmy Garoppolo is not coming back. So somewhere, either with the Rams, with McVay, or up in San Francisco, I think both would end up being really good situations for Baker to find himself in, to maybe sit for a little bit, watch, see if it doesn't really pan out, where all of a sudden you excel, and next thing you know, you're having a Geno Smith type year.
Yeah, and Baker is, I mean, frankly, like kind of an elite quarterback when you talk about the bootlegs and stuff like that. I mean, that's especially what he ran at Oklahoma. And if you put him, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to suggest Baker could go to San Francisco. And if we're assuming Brock Purdy isn't ready to start the season, that he could beat out Trey Lance in a one-on-one.
He could beat out Brock Purdy. Like, what are we talking about now? We saw Brock Purdy for 7-8 games, and now we're anointing him. Like,
Brady, you have been a Brock Purdy not believer.
And he got them a win in Pittsburgh. Are we serious right now? Like, a win with Mike Prefer taking over as your interim head coach. Like, I think we're like really downplaying what Baker was able to do for the Browns. And I know he didn't look great during his time in Carolina, but what quarterback did over that span? You know, obviously Frank Reich's there for a reason to turn it around. And then Baker looked pretty darn good in a short sample size with the Rams. So I feel like we're really underscoring the fact of what Baker is capable of. And then looking at what Purdy did and saying, okay, how many guys wouldn't love to have Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle in that offensive line and not be able to necessarily put up some yards, points, etc.
Well, Katie, I think I see a 49ers bobblehead behind you. Do you even want Baker in San Francisco? You're the 49ers expert here.
Well, for me, it's like, give me Brock Purdy or give me death, Brady Quinn. And I've been saying this every time you go on the show, and you have been a Purdy doubter this whole time. But I love this kid.
It's not a doubter. It's actually the exact opposite. It's more of a fan of Kyle Shanahan in the system. And I think, look, you can say whatever you want about Brock Purdy's success. I'm not taking anything away from him. He played great in some of those moments. But where he was drafted, obviously, by all the teams in the NFL, San Francisco included, it's not like they didn't pass on him once or twice along actually drafting him. They clearly see where his ceiling's at as a player. And there's a reason why when Trey Lance comes back and is healthy, it's going to be his job, because they know he's got a higher ceiling. All I'm saying is Baker Mayfield has a higher ceiling. And so if you're the 49ers and you want to win a Super Bowl, you have to look at who you're competing with. Well, on the other side, that's Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in the league, best quarterback on the planet. You better have someone who can go toe-to-toe, blow for blow with him, throw for throw with him. And I'm not necessarily sure that's the case.
Are we saying that Baker Mayfield could go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes?
I think he showed chances of being able to do. I mean, in college, I watched him do it.
Yeah.
So, in college, that's true. I think Baker has more upside than Brock Purdy. And like, that's no disrespect to him.
Well, and I do think that the 49ers do need to sign a veteran quarterback as well, because we don't know about the health of Brock Purdy, and we don't know we haven't seen Trey Lance play in 3 years now, except for just a very, very small sample size. But all right, we will get to the 49ers in a little bit, guys. Let's talk about OBJ. Became a free agent last March, and he's still a free agent. He can sign with any team at any time, though he reportedly was hoping for $20 million per year. But he's 30 years old, hasn't played in more than a year, likely a pipe dream. But the Packers could use some veteran talent in their receivers room Brady, deal or no deal for OBJ in Green Bay?
No deal. He doesn't want to go there. I mean, especially if Rodgers isn't there. Are we kidding ourselves? I mean, there's no chance he wants to go play in Green Bay. It's no disrespect to Green Bay, but like he's looking for a team that's going to have a chance of winning a Super Bowl, and he's going to tie himself to that quarterback, that team's track record. And, you know, I think he would maybe even forego some money in order to be on a better situation or better team. God, I'd love to
forego some money. Nobody's paying him that much.
Exactly. And that's part of it too, with the injury history, you know, and his age factoring in there as well. But like, God, go to Kansas City. That'd be amazing to see him there and see what Andy Reid could do with them amongst what they have. Like, if you're going to go take a discount, go to Kansas City, go there, and then see what you're able to build yourself back from. That seems to make a lot of sense to me.
Are you not worried that like OBJ is sort of a diva, might be like out in Kansas City peacocking around, acting like, you know, some you know, big to do? Like the OBJ thing, by the way, last year was so ridiculous. Like,
first off, I mean, let's just try to imagine what OBJ peacocking around in Kansas City looks like. Because last time when I was playing Kansas City, people could rip darts like in restaurants there at some point in time. So I'm just picturing OBJ like ripping some cigarettes outside of a bar in Kansas City, and you're like, "What's OBJ doing here? Oh, he's here to play football, but he's also ripping some darts." So.
Do you remember what smoking sections were like back in the day when it was just like a rope, and like you could just like sit, you could sit, like there could be like a family of 8 sitting here eating like their like nice Sunday dinner, and like 3 DJs could come sitting in and like just sit next to him, but like the only thing separating them was this little like rope, and then just fire heaters indoors and like blood, like nothing. It's like, oh, the rope is gonna stop the smoke. Like that's right.
And then that family went home like smelling like they had smoked like 18 boxes of cigarettes. Yeah. That poor family.
Awful.
What a time! What a time to be alive.
You used to be able to, I mean, I remember this. I mean, not me, obviously, for
not you.
But I remember when you see people smoke in airports, like and especially around here, where it's, you know, tobacco friendly.
They still do, by the way. There's still like those
smoking rooms.
Yeah, smoking rooms. You see them all the time. Like people just absolutely piping those things down.
Those things are pretty foul, I hear.
All right. So cigarettes aside, who else wants to weigh in on OBJ in Green Bay? Breech?
I was like, cigs aside.
I'll just say real quick on this. So I like the idea of Odell in Kansas City, but Brinson mentioning the word diva. What happens when Travis Kelce's getting 100 targets and Odell's only getting 50? Is he going to be getting upset that he is not getting the amount of passes he wants? So I do like the idea of Odell in Green Bay, but only if Aaron Rodgers is there, because I don't think Odell's personality would mesh well with Jordan Love. You don't want it to overwhelm your starting quarterback, who would be in his first year and yelling at him on the sideline because he's not throwing him enough passes. So if Aaron Rodgers is there, I like Odell, deal. But if Jordan Love is the starter, then no deal. Playing the game, deal or no deal.
No, I mean, I think Odell's going to go somewhere like, I think he wants the Dallas factor. I don't know if he ends up going to Dallas, but I think Jerry Jones loves the idea of, you know, you sign Odell, and even if it's like a superfluous, signing, like you still get the attention that he loves and craves, and Odell gets the attention he loves and craves. And so I think
Ooh. What if they let go of Zeke, but you bring in Odell?
That might be a way to like pacify Jerry Jones's obsession with Zeke, like keeping Zeke Elliott on the roster.
Well, it'd be the opposite. Like they're letting Zeke go, but you bring in OBJ.
That's what I'm saying. You're like, because like it's like freaking like Jerry Jones just cannot move past the idea of giving Zeke these like horrendously inefficient carries in games. You know, they Tony Pollard, they run down the goal line, and they just like, you know, then Zeke gets like, I don't know. Yeah, I think Odell. That's what I'm saying. Odell would be like the 1-for-1 swap that might make Jerry happy.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to have to humble himself a little bit, though, because I don't think he's one of the first picks that's going to go. And if you think these teams are going to start to blow through their budgets, they're not going to have a lot of money left over for him. And who knows if he can even still play at a high level.
That's a great question. The good thing he has working for him, though, is if you look at this year's draft, there are some top-end, really talented receivers. Quentin Johnson out of TCU, Jordan Addison out of USC, who's my personal favorite, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Ohio State, who really didn't play this year. I'll be curious to see, how he looks, how he's looked at and evaluated because of that. But those are really the top 3 dogs or the top 3 guys. Outside of that, it's quite as strong of a class, and so maybe that works to an Odell Beckham's advantage. At least as far as teams that are looking to replace that wide receiver or that open spot, with a more economical option there.
All right. Well, how about Jacoby Myers to the Browns? Breech, you're Andrew Berry. Are you making that deal?
I will be Andrew Berry, and I'll beat him quickly. I will say deal. I feel like he would be an excellent fit there. You obviously already have Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones. You throw Jacoby Myers in the slot. Boom. You have it fixed. And if Deshaun Watson can't make things work with those three guys, then maybe Deshaun Watson's the problem.
Wow.
Well, don't even get me started
I'll tag on to that. I'll say deal, by the way. I think Jacoby Myers could go to most teams, and you'd say deal. Look, he's highly productive, doesn't make a lot of noise. He's not a distraction in any way. He seems like the perfect receiver in that regard, but like his entire skill set, I think translates well to most systems. And I think most quarterbacks would love to have him on the team. So I'm going to say deal. I think he'd be a good fit in Cleveland, but a good fit in a lot of places.
Where did Jacoby Myers go to school? I can't remember where he was.
Where do you want? Where'd he go? Yeah, get up for the Wolfpack.
Yes. I think a deal go Tar Heels. Really got to figure out how to delete that one. I think a deal makes a lot of sense, but I personally don't like the idea of Jacoby Myers in Cleveland. Like I don't want to have to. I don't have to root. See, I root for Jacoby Myers. I don't have to root for Deshaun Watson passes. Like I'm happy to root against Deshaun Watson passes for obvious reasons, Katie. So I will say selfishly no deal, even though I think it fits.
What are those obvious reasons, Will?
The off-field issues, Brady.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say deal too, but I do think that this is more of like a medium priority for the Browns. Their first thing that they should tackle is a defensive tackle, in my opinion. But I do think that he would pair well with Amari Cooper and DBJ. So let's talk about Lavonte David. He spent 11 seasons with the Bucs. He'd like to stay in Tampa for the remainder of his career. But for the sake of this game that we're playing, how about David to the Steelers? Brinson, what do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I think Lavonte will figure out a way. The Bucs are like $56 million over the cap right now, and they can figure out ways to get under the cap. Obviously, you can restructure and do all that stuff. $35 million of it is that old geezer who retired, walked away from football, Tom something or another, and So I think whoever that guy is, nobody knows. I think that it makes a lot of sense. I just kind of like the idea of Lavonte David finishing his career in Tampa Bay just because he's been probably one of the most underrated players in franchise history.
11 years.
Yeah.
Same team.
Elite, like sort of modernist linebacker, but that never got
some of his best years. Yeah, he was buried because the team wasn't very good. So I don't know. Brady, what do you think?
I like deal for this though. If you're going to move on and you move on to an organization like Pittsburgh, it's to me kind of a perfect fit. I think veteran defensive players usually go there and excel. He's got that right type of demeanor and attitude they're looking for. I personally would love to see him there. I think it'd be great to see how he could add to that defense, given his track record so far and his track record of success. At times, that's been a weak spot for their defense too, at least the interior, especially the interior linebackers, based on their 3-4 base set. So to me, he'd be a great addition to this roster and team. But as Will said, it stinks when you see a guy have to change and go somewhere else. He's been such a staple in Tampa. You'd like to see him finish his career there. It's just so seldom that happens. I think the only hang up there is, the Steelers don't typically sign players and give huge signing bonuses, more of the family run organization contract style. So this is one where I don't know that he's going to be able to cash in necessarily, but I think it'd be a great fit from a scheme and really roster fit standpoint.
I'll just agree with both of them and say deal. You look at if the Steelers were to add Lavonte David and Brady talking about the fact they play 3-4, you're looking at their linebackers. You have TJ Watt on the outside. You have Miles Jack. You have Lavonte David. And you have whoever else they want to throw in there. That's pretty strong right there. And obviously you have other guys on that defense, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick. The Steelers defense is one of the reasons that Mike Tomlin was able to eat this team to 9 wins last season. And that's a pretty stacked defense. So I think if Lavonte David is looking to switch teams, the Steelers would be a good fit.
And if maybe
on that, yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, maybe I just really wanted to pronounce Kenny Pickett. Maybe the maybe the Steelers think Kenny Pickett's about to take a leap forward, and they want to try to get the defense going and be ready. So that makes sense.
All right, makes sense. We're gonna take a quick break. You're watching the Pick Six podcast. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Pick Six podcast. Let's keep things rolling here, fellas, with free agency hypotheticals. Now, if you're the Broncos, the top position that you need is clear. It's the O-line. Denver allowed an NFL high of 63 sacks in 2022. Enter Chiefs tackle Orlando Brown. Breech, is this a deal that you would get done?
For me, if I'm the Broncos, this is an absolute deal, and I'm doing everything at all costs to get this done. If you're Sean Payton, all you want to do is anything you can to get more protection for Russell Wilson, and getting one of the premier left tackles in the game would definitely help that. So I would say yes. I'm trying to make a deal happen here.
Here's the only part is they've got Garrett Bowles, and Garrett Bowles has been fine. I don't think he's necessarily been the issue. I think you look at some of the sacks last season, you might put that more on Russell Wilson and maybe somebody in the scheme than anything else. And Orlando Brown literally went to the Chiefs because he didn't want to play right tackle. And so even though that's an open spot on the Broncos offensive line, I'm not really sure how they see this thing fitting out with Brown just moving to the right tackle spot, I guess, or trying to move Bowles over so Orlando Brown can play left tackle. I'm going to say no deal from that standpoint, because I think we've been here before, and Orlando Brown wants to be a left tackle, a blindside, and paid like it. And I don't know that he's going to get the deal that he wants in Denver if he's going to be, signing there to play essentially right tackle, which what is their current need.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like the Chiefs gave up, high draft capital for him, and then franchise tagged him because they couldn't work out a contract. I think what probably happens here is Kansas City tries to figure out a way to draft and develop somebody maybe behind him. They've also gone out and splurged in the open market and clearly traded for Brown as well. But maybe just franchise tag him, and then Brown. You look at, I think he's 27. He's still very much in his prime, especially as an offensive lineman. Where if he does a tag this year, one, you get a crap ton of money, and then two, you hit the open market at that age next, because you won't get the third franchise tag, and you can pick wherever you want to go and absolutely cash in. So I would say no deal, and I think Brady's point about the left-right tackle thing is very salient even.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's the best available in the position. But yeah, switching from right to left, it's a little something there. But what do you think about McGlinchey? Probably because they definitely need somebody there. And I do think that the 49ers are not going to re-get McGlinchey. Do you think he would be a good spot for the Broncos?
Yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense for what I think Sean Payton would like to do. At least, bringing him, putting at that right tackle spot to be an upgrade from what they had last year. That's for sure. So Mike McGlinchey can make a lot of sense there for the Denver Broncos. You think he might not sign back in San Francisco. I'm not so sure. We'll end up seeing what happens. Sometimes players are willing to take less in order to stay at a place where they've got more familiarity with it. And so we'll see how that plays out. But that would make a much more natural fit, I think, for at least the need of the Denver Broncos right now.
Well, I think also because the Broncos, their first pick isn't until the end of the third round. So it's hard to predict what kind of talent's going to be available there. So I do think they'll go the free agency route. Yeah,
that draft pick's that you don't want to pick that everybody's touched. It's like, it was like there's 5 teams have owned that pick over the last 3 months or 18 months.
Yeah. It's like a hot potato.
So it is hot.
Yeah.
Actually, I was. Do we ever talk about? No, I'm not gonna do it. We were talking about the Chiefs, and you said potato, so I showed you about Casey Potato Girl, and
what's Casey Potato Girl?
Yeah, no idea what you're talking about.
Casey Potato Girl is?
Oh my God, this is not a conversation worth having again.
Can you just do it in 10 seconds?
Yes.
I'm slightly curious. Yeah.
Can we cut out the podcast time when we talked about it before and then put it in here?
Yes, we talked about it for 7 minutes. So for the podcast.
Oh my God, Breech hates this topic. Well, who's the Casey Potato Girl? 10 seconds.
It's not potatoes. Who wants to talk about potatoes on a football podcast?
This girl took a baked potato to a football game, and she's sitting there in the stands, and it's a Jaguars Chiefs playoff game, and this Jags fan takes a picture of her eating this baked potato, which is like with no toppings, just a baked potato, just mealing out raw dog a baked potato in the stands, and then she turns around and takes a selfie because she's filming a picture of her. She's filming it for her friends, and then tweets back at the guy. It was like, "Oh, that's funny. I got a potato and a W. How about you?" And and so she goes viral, and to the point that Lay's sponsored her, and potato chips, obviously, and she went to the Super Bowl courtesy of Lay's as at Casey Potato Girl on Twitter.
Dude, I love Casey Potato Girl. This is awesome. Good for her.
That is a great story.
That's a healthy way of eating a potato or eating a starch, by the way. I'm sure it was like a bodybuilder or something. Is that what ended up coming from that?
No butter even? I can't imagine just raw dogging.
You just need a little salt on that. It's a little salt on this thing.
Here's her Twitter profile. I think Billy's going to try and pop it up. But this girl, I don't know. Some podcast listener emailed me and was like, "That's actually something we do to keep our hands warm in the Midwest." Have you ever heard of that, Brady?
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily.
You hold a baked potato. There she is. All right.
Well, you put like
anything hot, but yeah,
it's wrapped in tinfoil. You put the baked potato on the oven or on the grill at the tailgate, and then about 20 minutes before you go in, you pull it off. You let it cool down.
You hold it, keeps your hands warm.
Yeah,
a little snack too while you're doing it.
Brady, have you ever taken a
little
potato
healthy
into
snack.
a sporting event?
I know I've not personally.
Okay,
Usually I've been playing in a sporting event, so it's not.
You've never attended a baseball game?
God, not since I was like a young kid. Like usually I was playing baseball, so not many.
there, you see, look at, I mean,
There she is.
Yeah, raw
Look
dog
at
in that potato.
You know, and if you cook it the right way and you get that skin just crispy enough, it is delicious. All right, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. All right.
Yeah, it's
Brady's
delicious
a
if you
big
eat it
proponent
right
of
away. It's in your pocket for an
potato.
hour, soggy and gross.
Well, it's like eating soggy cereal, Breech. Some people like the cereal a little soggy. Some of them don't like it to be like shards of glass cutting the top of your mouth. Okay.
Yeah,
For all those out there who like the
cereal would
CTC.
be weirder. Soggy cereal would be weird. Okay, guys, let's talk about my favorite subject, the 49ers. Now, Brady, I already know that you think that Baker Mayfield could be a good spot for him to be at the 49ers. What about Daniel Jones? You got Brock Purdy, got Trey Lance, you're John Lynch. Do you make a play for Danny Dimes in San Francisco?
No, I mean, you got so much invested in the Trey Lance. I personally feel like you have to figure out what you have in first. So it's not like a Danny Dimes deal, because I actually think with his skill set, he's a great as far as decision maker. It would make a lot of sense in this offense. But I think you got to see what you have in Trey Lance first before anything else past this year. So for me, I'm not doing that deal. And I think in order to do that deal, you're most likely going to have to ante up a longer term contract, because he's going to be at least under the non-exclusive franchise tag.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're at the make or break spot for Trey Lance, and Daniel Jones would be a pretty good fit in that offense just because of his mobility and I think his decision making would fit well with what Kyle Shanahan wants. But for me, it's like it's a tough spot. I'd be curious what you think as a Niners fan, Katie, because like you have to. Like you're so pot committed to Trey Lance, and you do have Brock Purdy eventually coming back, that it's like you just can't go in a direction. Like, it's just hard to go in a direction where you're loading up for another quarterback when you've got what you invested in Trey Lance.
Agreed. I think it's no deal too. I just think you can't invest that kind of money in a quarterback when you have Trey Lance. And that's not to say actually like Brady's idea of bringing in Baker Mayfield. You find a lower cost guy who can start in 2023 if they have to, but you prefer that Trey Lance wins the job. But you can't go out and pay $40 million for Daniel Jones or Derek Carr or someone like that when you still have no idea what you have in Trey Lance.
Yeah, I agree. I think we do need some kind of a veteran quarterback, but somebody a little bit more inexpensive on a 1-year deal. Daniel Jones would cost too much, and we don't really need him for that long. Okay. The Tom Brady thing, people kept saying over and over again, Tom Brady is coming home. Tom Brady. The Niners had no need for Tom Brady. We have Brock Purdy. What about this year? Well, first of all, he's retired, so that's
we've done plenty of Brady retired podcasts. Like,
are we?
This guy, who knows with this guy? He's pretty. He's doing underwear photos.
Brady's not retired until the 2023 season kicks off. In
Didn't
September.
he file paperwork to be retired with the NFL? I mean, I think he did that to like let everybody know, hello, I am actually retiring.
But there's nothing that stops you from just reinstating yourself. That's the biggest misnomer. That's where Pete, who's been around the league forever, still doesn't seem to understand it and get it right. Most guys like JJ Watt, they never file them because there's no need to. When you're done, you're done, and you just make that decision. If they want to call you for drug tests, you say, okay, that's fine, but I'm not going to actually take it, and they can fail you or what have you, but there's no consequences from it.
You're a loser.
What is that clip? Oh,
well, that was
all right,
from,
let's talk about
that was from our picks this year where Pete lost. Not only the regular season, but also the season. So
also for a second there, I thought Pete had like entered the chat and was terrified. Like Pete heard his name. It was like coming in, like all of a sudden just flying in from the top shelf, and he was screaming at us. But just a sound clip.
that would actually be terrifying. Okay, let's talk about Derek Carr, who obviously will not be back with the Raiders this year. How about Derek Carr to the Patriots? Brinson, deal or no deal if you're Billy B?
Nah, I say no deal. You got Mac Jones with a cheap rookie contract. Like Derek Carr, I have obviously a complicated relationship with the Carr family.
As in you're their number one sworn enemy?
Yeah, they all blocked me on Twitter. Like, this is the thing about Derek Carr.
What did you do?
I tweeted out a video.
How long do you have, Katie? This could literally take us 3 days to go through everything.
All right, we already did the potato girl. Maybe we don't have time for Brinson gets blocked by the entire Carr family.
When we do the Derek Carr signs emergency podcast, like we can dive into it. But the thing with Carr is like, I worry about the market in particular where he goes, and this is sort of what I was saying about the blocking thing. Like he could go to the Jets, but man, that is going to be some scrutiny on you, buddy. And you could go if you go to the Patriots, no less scrutiny if you try to like take over. So I say no deal. I think he needs to go. I think the Saints are the right fit for him, somewhere where it's like, you know, obviously like a popular team, but not a intense media market. Like Derek Carr in New England is just going to be blocking reporters left and right.
I think this year's all about Mac Jones in New England. I think you bring in Bill O'Brien to be the offensive coordinator because you need to figure out what you have in Mac Jones to make a decision after this year if he is the long-term answer. And so you got past whatever that was last year with Matt Patricia. Thank God that Mac Jones now gets an experienced play call in the NFL to help him out. But that's what this is about. I don't know that you want to bring in a guy in Derek Carr who is probably a little bit more mobile and obviously more experienced, but I don't know that he changes the dynamic there in a big way for you. And you'd also be admitting that we've got to move on from a first-round pick that we took in Mac Jones. So it doesn't make much sense to me. I think there's other fits, better fits. Probably every single team in the NFC South would be a better fit for Derek Carr right now, even though I know he's talking to the Jets as well as some other teams.
I think Derek Carr would do just fine with the Patriots, but I'm also no deal. And it's basically echoing what they said. Derek Carr is going to want $35-40 million per year, and he is not $38 million better than Mac Jones, who's going to be getting $2 million per year. So I'm staying the course with the quarterback that I'm still developing. So I'm riding Mac Jones at $2 million a year rather than give Derek Carr a bunch of money. And if I'm Derek Carr, I sign with the Panthers.
The Panthers. Yeah. Well, I mean, also the Patriots have what's his name? Bailey Zappi, the guy that looks exactly like Mac Jones, who did pretty well in who went in for Mac Jones a couple times.
Yeah, Bailey Zappi's got a bit of a, was it Pete likes to call it a helium balloon for an arm? Like he likes to float it out there a little bit. I still think they like Mac too, but yeah, you're right. Like the Patriots,
the fans don't like Mac. That I can say.
Oh, the fans have been used to Tom Brady for 21 years.
I mean, look, they loved Mac when he first got there as a rookie, and then they turned on him in the second year or whatever. I mean, it's a tough fan base to please when you have to fill in the shoes of Tom Brady. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, now let's talk about this guy.
Oh,
Jimmy Garoppolo to the Colts.
It's a handsome bobblehead.
I feel less handsome whenever Jimmy's photos are up.
Well, yeah. I mean,
and when I'm around Brady, man.
Well, but you're the most handsome person in Cleveland, right? Ohio? What was it?
Cincinnati. Yeah. Could you imagine Jimmy Garoppolo and Jim Irsay partying together with those two? That'd be a good time. That'd be a blast. As much as I'd love to entertain this dream, I don't see it, right? Like, this is another team that's kept going the veteran quarterback route and have had varying degrees of success. I'm not sure Shane Steichen is going to be looking at this saying, yep, that's what I want to do, especially when you have the number 4 overall pick as it currently stands. This is one where you say, we need to rebuild. Let's go through the draft. Let's go find whoever that is, whether it is Bryce Young, who, by the way, just measured in at 5'10.5" officially at the combine. And he will be under 200 pounds in weight, which would, I believe, be the first quarterback that's taken who's sub 6 foot and sub 200 pounds in the first round since 1982 Jim McMahon. So a little historic if Bryce Young is to be taken where everyone thinks he's going to go. But I digress. Whether it's Levis, whether it's Stroud, whether it's Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, whoever it may be, that seems to be more the direction the Colts want to go. Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, I think could be in a lot of different places. But if Rodgers goes somewhere else besides the Raiders, that would be the perfect fit. You've got a system you're very familiar with, Devontae Adams, who's a great number 1 wide receiver. That would make a lot of sense for me for looking for a place that I think he could jump in right away and be effective.
I was trying to Google to see if Jimmy Garoppolo plays any musical instruments, because I think that's the number 1 quality of any quarterback who goes to the Colts. You have to be able to jam out with Jim Irsay, and you got to wear cowboy hats and lean up against trees.
That's right.
Can you cover
or not?
I can't find anything. I can find a spot where I can see a singing on stage, but at a concert with Richard Sherman. That's all I could find on. And I had to go to like Pinterest to find it. So yeah, it's something. I don't know that he's a fit for Jim Irsay's band. So I agree with Brady. I think the Raiders, if Rodgers doesn't go there, really are like just such an obvious landing spot for Jimmy G. And I think look, that face, that handsomeness in the silver and black. Dreamy.
It's a lot.
The Raiders do feel like the best fit, but as far as the Colts go, I would just say I don't hate it. If he's willing to take a 1-year deal and they say, look, man, you might start if you beat out the guy we draft, but you're just going to be a bridge quarterback at best, and we're getting rid of you after 1 year. If he's willing to take that, then I'll do the deal. Otherwise, he should sign with the Raiders.
Wait, you think Jimmy Garoppolo to the Raiders?
No. Well, Jimmy to the Raiders would be a good fit for Jimmy, but the Colts, well, the team we were talking about, I would say that if he's willing to take a 1-year deal with them and be a bridge quarterback, that it would be an interesting fit for him.
I don't think he is. I don't think he wants to take another 1-year deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably. I mean, that's fair, given that, like, with the way all the San Francisco stuff where he's constantly being yo-yoed in and out. He wants to just be the guy because he's not he's not old.
Still a good quarterback. Yeah, I mean, he's just injury prone. That's I think.
I would like
to see him with the Jets. I think he'd be great there. Jets, Jets.
Would you become a Jets
fan here in New York?
Would you become a Jets? Would you become like a semi-Jets fan? Wait! You just want him in New York so you can go watch him play at the Jets, don't you?
Well, here's the thing. One, I'm a 49ers fan above anything else. So like nothing comes, I loved Brock Purdy this season. He was a big one for me. I keep looking down at Jimmy Garoppolo as I'm sorry, I have to have this conversation. But I would be happy for him at the Jets. I just want him to, I think there's some good weapons there. They have a good defense. Obviously, he has a good relationship with Robert Saleh. I feel like that would be a good place for him, a nice franchise. I could see him living well in New York City as well. But I mean, I've come to terms with the fact that he's not coming back to the Niners.
I think Jimmy would live pretty well in Las Vegas or New York. I think that would be a solid fit.
I would think Las Vegas, based on his dating history, might make some more sense.
Almost too much.
At least he takes him out to a nice dinner in Beverly Hills. That's all I'll say. Not everybody.
I'm just saying it would be like giving me getting a job at a brewery. Like, I don't know. It might be too much at once.
Maybe too much.
Makes too much sense.
I would also like to clarify that John Breech was actually Mr. Greater North Cincinnati 2008. He was not Mr. Ohio 2008.
It's still an honor.
2008. So you even had your own year wrong where you were that.
Yeah. And he was actually the runner-up to Mr. Greater North Cincinnati.
Brinson, how do you know so much about this?
Yeah, is that like Covington area? We were talking here, Breech.
I like to Google Breech's.
That's Southern Cincinnati, Brady.
Come on.
Covington's in Kentucky. It's not even in Ohio.
I know, but it might as well count as part of Cincinnati. They're right there.
Oh, I was going to say, is that the dig because of actually Kentucky? Brady's a known Kentucky Gator.
That's not true. I have family in Lexington. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so you hate that family. The truth is coming out. I hear it.
Oh, I just saw them recently. I went back to what was the big horse race they just had there? God, it's escaping my mind right now. We went down to Keeneland. It was awesome. Keeneland, by the way, is like one of the greatest sports venues you can find.
What is
that, Jimmy?
That most people have never been.
Stage.
Yeah, Jimmy's rapping.
Oh yeah, drop that in Slack. That's Jimmy Garoppolo in Las Vegas.
It's with
I
Nelly.
don't know. This is a vibe. I feel like he could maybe jam out with Irsay.
I don't know that
Irsay is not singing this type of music.
I don't know. We could see Jim Irsay cover like Hot in Here. Do like a little country version of Hot in Here. I can see that with Jimmy G rapping it.
Where is this? This is in Las Vegas?
Probably, which is
that was in Las Vegas.
All right, let's get this train back on the track. Obviously, anytime we talk about Jimmy G, I tend to go left here. But last, but certainly not least in these hypotheticals that we're talking about, Tony Pollard to the Giants. This past year, Pollard rushed for over 1,000 yards, added nearly 400 more through the air. Would this be a good move for the Giants? I'll start with you, Brady.
No, as I said before, why would you give up on Saquon Barkley to bring in Tony Pollard, who doesn't have as much equity built up within your organization, who's probably going to be trying to look for, if he hits the free agent market, similar money? I don't know that he leaves the Cowboys anyway. I think they could potentially use the tag on him. And as I stated before, like, this is a good draft for teams like the Giants, who, if they were going to let Saquon Barkley go into free agency, Go look at Bijan Robinson. Go look at Jahmyr Gibbs. Both of those guys are very capable of filling in for the void left behind by Barkley. So I'm going to say no deal. And like I said before, I think it's because Dallas probably values Tony Pollard so much that they might be willing to tag him and keep him on the roster, and at least for the time being. Would that not be the most expensive running back room we've ever seen in the NFL with Zeke's contract, along with whatever Tony Pollard would cost them this year?
It would be pretty pricey. Although, and again, you pointed out, if they cut Zeke and he has no guaranteed money left on his deal, so they really should cut him. I just don't know that Jerry will get there. The other thing too is to think about is because what we've seen so far from the Giants with Joe Shane and Brian Daboll there is sort of attempting to mirror what worked in Buffalo. With the guys that they worked with, and we've seen Buffalo has invested draft capital in the running back room, but has not gone out and try to, I think you can look at the way they've invested in the running back position and fairly say that it would be surprising if the Giants went out and paid a non-Saquon Barkley running back.
Yeah, I think that would be a little crazy. If you're the Giants and you are going to spend money on the running back, then as Brady said, you get Saquon Barkley, get the guy that's already been in your system, but it might not make much sense to be spending $10, $11, $12 million per year on a running back, whether that's Tony Pollard or Barkley. If I'm Tony Pollard, I am calling Mike McDaniel and saying, hey, man, you got room for me down in South Beach? Because I think he could be a good fit in McDaniel's system, but I'll say no deal with the Giants.
Well, in McDaniel's system with Miami, they've got a lot of running backs there. Do you think that they do have room for him?
They love running backs. They'll make room.
Well, he comes from the 49ers train. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Pollard is like the lead back in a Kyle Shanahan style McDaniel system would be pretty hot.
They can't have enough running backs in the roster. They're give me more running backs.
Have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson are both going to be free agents, so at least you have two of those guys who might not be returning in 2023. So there's some room now. There's some room in that running back room.
Some room in that running back room. All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap on our free agency hypotheticals here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Pick Six podcast, and we will see you Thursday for Pick Six Mailbag.